Hi, everyone out there in LMTV land. Welcome to another special edition of your favorite government access TV show, if you don't include history of municipal parking lots. Let's learn about parking fees and the secrets of the zoning code. Anyway, I'm here this month with everyone's favorite commissioner, with Vice President Sean Kramer. Sean, thank you for joining me.
Of course, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it's very exciting. So, you just recently replaced me as Vice President of the board.
Yes.
My first question, how long did that coup take you to plan?
I've been plotting it for years.
Yeah.
Yes, ever since I moved to the township.
Well played. Well played. Well, it worked. No, seriously, I'm incredibly excited that you're Vice President. I learned in a job a long time ago that whenever you're replacing a role, you always want to find somebody better and make it better and better and better, and that's how organizations grow. That's how you get better, and we have done that.
Not so sure,
Anyway,
but we'll see.
I have no doubt whatsoever. So tell me, this is a new role to you.
Yeah.
What made you think, like, I'm interested in this? What are you excited about?
Yeah, a lot of things. I think the thing that I'm most excited about is getting to work with Todd.
Yeah.
He's terrific, and I have enormous respect for him and for the way that you two together helped the board be really, really strong. And I hope that I can continue to build on that. You know, I think it was really smart the way that you guys set up committees so that people of different perspectives are working together on an issue so that by the time it gets to the full board, it's been kind of baked, right?
Mm-hmm.
and thought
Yeah.
through from a bunch of angles. I think it really helps. I think that I wanted to be able to learn all the facets of how the board works.
Yeah.
and what it does. It's really been fun to get to learn my own projects, and get involved in those. But this provides me with the opportunity to learn about the board as a whole and how it works with the staff, and that's great. And the staff is great. I mean,
Yeah.
the township manager and assistant township manager and those guys are just, and township secretary are just great people. So I get to see them more,
Yeah.
which is really fun.
No, I think
Yeah.
that's all spot on, and staff is a great point. So I think working, before I was Vice President of the board, like you said, I would work on my individual issues. And we say, I forget the expression, it's we represent our ward, but we work for the township as a
Right.
whole. And as Vice President, it's really important to do that. And
Yeah.
it's not the most well-defined role. It's not like Vice President does A, B, C, D, and E.
Right.
But it's, you are there working with the president of the board, making sure that the priorities are straight, working with the staff. And it's interesting because we, as commissioners, do this job part-time.
Yeah.
We're here, 10, 15, 20 hours a week. Our staff is here full-time. This is their full-time job.
And then some.
And absolutely. And, making sure that as we set policy, it can be implemented and we're not getting in their way,
Right.
because we have a tendency of doing that a
Yes.
lot as this board. And as Vice President, I've had the opportunity not only to work with the manager, the assistant manager, and the township secretary, but also the department heads, and
Yeah.
checking in with Chris Lesswing in Building and Planning and Paul McElhaney in Public Works, and across the board, and just making sure that it's working.
Yeah.
And to me, I think a lot of that job as Vice President is just kind of checking in and making sure that things are going smoothly, and if they're not, working with the president to fix those issues.
Yeah. And it's been good to, I already knew this, but now I know it even more, how good the township manager is at knowing what's going on and knowing where the needs are. And it's just been great to learn alongside him and hear, what kind of support they need from the board. So that's great. I've learned a lot already.
Yeah, and it's a lot of work also. So it is,
Yes.
it is a lot.
You made it look easy. It is not easy.
It is not easy. I have a good poker face, I
Yes, you do.
Who knew? And you get to second all of the motions that nobody else wants to second.
Yeah.
So that's very exciting.
It's very
The
exciting.
minutes of the last
Yes.
meeting,
Yeah.
just anything on the consent calendar. Yeah,
It's a good
that's
time.
super fun.
Yeah.
That's super fun stuff.
Makes me feel very important.
Plus, the tough part is you're always on camera during the meetings because you're right in the middle.
That's
I
right.
now have the luxury of being able to pick my nose again or do whatever, play with my hair, and not that I can. But yeah, now that I'm off to the side, and it is, you are now literally beside the gavel.
Pressure's on.
So.
I gotta make sure I don't have spinach between my teeth.
Yeah, I've done that. Anyway, so besides the vice president, you've been on this board for a little over 2 years now. What are some of the things you're really proud of? Obviously, when we come onto this board, it's, we all come on because we're excited to help out, to be a bigger part of our community.
Yep.
You've done that, clearly. What are some of those things that you're really proud, like looking back, you're like, wow, I can't believe I accomplished that?
Yeah, I'm so excited about Ardmore House expansion. It was great. I mean, it's been so exciting to get to work with the county. All it took was a phone call to say, hey, let's work together. And they had, we came up with an idea pretty quick, and now it's coming to fruition. It can be 48 new units of housing for low-income seniors.
So for those who don't know, what is Ardmore House now? Where is it? Tell us a little bit about that.
So Ardmore House is at the corner of Ardmore Avenue and Lancaster, basically. And it is it's affordable housing for seniors with limited means and people with disabilities. So it makes sure that the housing is affordable, no more than 30% of whatever their income is. So it's really important. It has a very long waiting list. And now we're going to be able to make a good dent in that waiting list by making 48 new units, which is exciting.
How many units is it now?
I think it's 30 or 36. Yeah.
So more than double. Yeah, that's really exciting.
Yeah.
And it's not an inexpensive project, right? And that's why
it's $12 or $14 million after the tax credits that we're getting.
Right.
So we're putting in ARP money from both Lower Merion and the county, and Affordable Housing Fund money from Lower Merion, and other money from
and money from the county.
It takes a lot of work and coordination. Staff's been fantastic.
That's great, and such a valuable project.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
You mentioned ARP money, and there was a lot of discussion on what are we doing with our ARP money and how are we helping it. And you were involved with the community group. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was great. So after the first round of funding, we decided, let's get word from residents about how they want to see the second round get spent, but not only how they want it to get spent, how it needs to get spent. Right? So asking people across the township, and particularly people with socioeconomic need, what do you need, right? And what are the people, if you're an advocate, what are the people that you advocate for need? And then we put that together in a report. Of course, we had a consultant that did a really good job. And then we were able to use that report to help guide what the priorities were going to be for the second round of funding. And then we did fund a bunch of different nonprofits that are doing great stuff. So I was excited about that.
That's great. And it was over $500,000, close to
almost $1 million.
Almost $1 million.
Over $800,000.
Yeah, that's great. And we got $24 million plus from the federal government, and the rest of it, things like Ardmore House. Ashbridge House is something that's in Ward 6 that I represent, which I'm really excited about because there's a senior group called New Horizons that helps seniors with meals and activities and counseling and all kinds of things. They don't have a permanent home. They're operating out of Narberth Borough Hall, and they've been searching for a permanent home. Ashbridge House, perfect location, right in the middle of township. We have this beautiful giant house that's not really used other than on election day as a polling place, but it's not handicap accessible. So we were able to, get all of this ADA, compliance by spending money. It takes money to do that, and so we're taking ARP money to make that ADA accessible and get them a permanent home. There's obviously the Ardmore Community Center in Palm. If you want to talk a little bit about that we're spending a decent amount of money on.
So excited about that. Ardmore Avenue Community Center is a really important asset in the South Ardmore community, and it's been in a temporary building for like 30-something years, and it's finally going to get we're going to have a real building there, a permanent building, and it's going to be beautiful. And we had lots of input from the neighborhood about how to make it good and really usable, and it's going to be great. And I think it's going to include a spray ground.
That's great.
Part of the work is going to include a spray ground, which is going to be really awesome. And then across the street is the Palm, which is going to get an addition and a makeover,
Yeah.
and it's going to be really nice for people. It's just such an important place for seniors in the community. Senior needs came up as one of the top needs
Yeah.
in the ARP engagement.
No, absolutely is. I mean, we have, and I'm not. This is not meant derogatorily, I don't know if that's a word, but like we have held our taxes flat for the township portion, but the school district, the taxes have gone up and up, and a lot of seniors are concerned, and right, you're living on a fixed income, and it's very difficult. You may have bought your house before it was worth what it's worth now, and maybe you can't get the equity out of the house or whatever for whatever reason. So being able to help support the seniors in our community is so important.
Yeah.
And to me, like all of that ARP money, there was a lot of controversy over how are we spending this, and are we spending it right, and what do we do with it? And ultimately, doing some of these capital projects that are helping those in need, seniors, those in the Ardmore community that are socioeconomically, disadvantaged. We're also giving close to $1 million to these community groups. I mean, it really, I'm so proud of the work that this board has done.
Me too.
in helping out those in need and making our township a better township with that money.
Yeah,
So.
it's really cool, and I'm really proud that we listen the way we do. I think it's I don't know, good government in action, I hope.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, unbelievably, time flies when you're having fun. We're already through our first segment. We're time for a break, and we'll be right back with Vice President Sean Kramer.
Welcome back to Beside the Gavel. I'm Vice President Sean Kramer, here with Lower Merion Board of Commissioners former Vice President Andy Gavrin. So, Andy, how do you do this job exactly?
Well, I have to say, the biggest part of this job is hosting Beside the Gavel. It's funny, I'd never been on television before. Oh no, that's not true. I was on House Hunters International. Another story for another day. Yes. When I moved to London. Anyway, but this show is the greatest show on Lower Merion TV. Public Works Pipeline was a very distant second. Now it may creep up now that they have a new host, but the vice president, in all seriousness, the vice president job is ill-defined. I think I had mentioned that. It's not that you have to do certain things. I think we have 14 commissioners who are brilliant, who all contribute in their own way, who bring a diverse set of experiences and backgrounds and interests to this board. And I think the job of board officers, the president and the vice president, is to wrangle all of that into kind of a cohesive plan for what we're doing. It's not to take your opinion. I mean, there are certainly a number of things that this board voted on and did that I wouldn't have done. I was the one on a number of 13-1 votes over the past number of years, but that's not what vice president's about. It's about saying taking the temperature of the board, working with the president, and making sure that this township not only stays, as the wonderful township as it is, but grows, gets better, continually improves. One thing that Todd and I put into place is the priorities workshop that we started. It really is, and it was interesting because every year the president of the board would say, "Okay, here are our priorities for the year." It's too late in January. If you're coming in and saying, "Here's our priorities for the year," you need to. This stuff takes time. You talked in the first half about Ardmore House, and that didn't just say, hey, we're going to start doing this. You didn't say it in January and then have it done by December.
No.
It takes planning. So we wanted to make sure that planning really was institutionalized and put these priorities into place kind of the year before, right? And then you plan it, and then next year that becomes the priorities. That was Todd's idea, and it was a great idea. And my role in that was really to help him think through, how does this work, right? How do we get commissioners to vote on it? What is the scoring system? How do we have the various committees bring their ideas?
Right.
So I think we have this like overarching framework that you really the president sets and you help with that. But then how do you take that and put it into practice?
Yeah.
And that, to me, that's the main job of the vice president, being there to kind of support those types of ideas.
I love the board priorities workshop function, right? That we are, rather than just kind of keeping things going as is, right?
Yeah.
What's really important, and how are we gonna put that into place? That's the job of a board.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's invaluable.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good process. You guys came up with a really good process.
I think it worked. I mean, we've done it once. This will be our second year this spring, and I think so far so good. It gives direction to the various committees. It gives direction to staff, and it sets us up to grow. And you had mentioned, you just said one thing that always bothered me when our budget came out. We haven't raised taxes in years, and we said we've been able to maintain the same level of service.
Right.
And I cringed every time we said that. I'm
Right.
like, we shouldn't be maintaining the level of service. We
Right.
should be getting better and better every year as a township.
Absolutely.
And I think this allows us to do that.
I agree.
So,
I agree.
yeah.
What do you miss about it? Do you miss anything about the VP job?
I do. I loved it. I served for 4 years as vice president, 2 when Dan Bernheim was president, 2 with Todd Sinai as president. And they were very different, both incredibly effective, both devoted an amazing amount of time to this township. I loved being there, and you said in the first segment about like having that broader view. It gave me a reason to work with all of the commissioners on the board, and I'm so I've said this many times. I'm so impressed by our board.
Yeah.
We have so many wonderful, brilliant people who devote their time to make this community better.
Yeah.
While we don't always agree, we do it respectfully. We have different perspectives, and that's what makes the job interesting. I think when we have, I'd say 80% of our votes are unanimous, and they're just, okay, go through it, it's procedural, it's easy. But it's those 20% of votes where there's a lot of debate and controversy. Those are like what makes it exciting. And knowing that like we are making a difference. I have 3 kids, I know you have kids. Like knowing that when they grow up through this township, we've made it a better place.
Yeah, I hope so.
And I've absolutely loved that, and setting that example for the kids. And I think as vice president, you have an opportunity to kind of take that to the next level a little bit, and be even more involved and set those priorities, help set those priorities, and set the stage for it.
What surprised you about being vice president or the role?
One is how much fun I'd have with Beside the Gavel. It really, I've joked around a lot on the show, but I know it's 24 minutes of people's times, or maybe 22 minutes. I should know after 2 years of doing this, but it's time that people are investing to learn more about the town. If you're watching the show, which millions of people are doing, millions and
must
billions
see
even,
TV.
and it's
That's
gonna.
right.
I mean, the ratings are gonna shoot through the roof now, but. For those who are investing their time, make it fun, make it interesting. And so I've had a good time with this. It's been really interesting seeing 2 different presidents of this board and working beside both of them. Dan had been on this board for a number of years, really knew what he was doing. And really what I was doing was learning a lot, from him. I was certainly contributing, but I was also new to the role, so I was like, I don't know how much I should say. And Dan knew everybody, and somebody would call with an issue, and he'd be like, I got this. And he did a great job of keeping me in the loop and involving me. But when Todd came on the board, he started when I started. So we were both 2 years into our tenure on this board.
Right.
So he wasn't coming with years of institutional knowledge, so we were working through it together. And it was really interesting, everything from a basic hey Andy, is this email okay to send out to the board? And I'm like, okay, professor, tone down the language a little bit. But yeah, everything from that to board officer meetings and pushing back on township staff because we have a different way of looking at things.
Yeah.
You know, seeing that difference between the two of them really, really kind of surprised me and was interesting. What didn't surprise me was the amount of time that I put in as vice president. It is to do it right. You know, you're spending an extra on top of what you're already spending, 5+ hours a week.
Yeah.
Just to get a better understanding of things, making phone calls, following up on things, and you know, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And now it's your problem.
Yes. But it's really
It's a great
cool.
problem. It's so
it
cool.
is a great problem. It's I'm learning about stuff that I hadn't had to pay attention to previously, and now I do, and it's great. I mean, it's fascinating, really.
Yeah.
But it's a job.
Oh, no doubt.
It's feels like a full-time job.
It does.
Right?
Somehow we make time for 2 full-time jobs.
I know.
But it's so worthwhile.
Yeah.
It is so rewarding. And that's what I've gotten out of both serving as commissioner and serving as vice president, like how rewarding it is. You know, and it was less vice president, but more in my role as commissioner, the whole new middle school, Black Rock, the fields, and the agreement with Haverford Township. When we finally came to an agreement, and I know we secured playing fields for the middle school, and we saved the property at Oakwell and the adjoining property, and we're still working through it, but we've came a long way, and we've saved a good portion of those historic buildings and the 500 trees. 500+ trees on the property.
Yeah.
That's because of the work that I did. Not alone. I did with so many other people, our staff, Scott Zelov, the Haverford commissioners, our management.
But you were a key piece.
But being able to say someday, when 50 years from now, I won't be coming back 50 years, but my kids can come back and be like, my dad helped. That's there partly because of my dad.
Absolutely.
That's really cool.
It is really cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if people know how. I think that's been we're not always good at publicizing our successes. Yeah. Right?
That's true.
That's a huge success. It's a big one. What else are you proud of?
That was a big one. I think changing the tone of the board a little bit.
Yeah.
And not only internally, we get along and things hum.
Real.
But also, and I'll go back to the school board again, Lucy Klain was the president of the school board, and for years, the township and the school board butted heads.
Yes.
And there was no reason for it. We're all volunteers trying to make this community better, but they needed to come to us for land development approval. They didn't like some of the things we did, and it got ugly and it got personal.
Yeah.
And sitting down with Lucy and Peter Lee, who was the vice president, and changing that dynamic, and I think it changed it permanently.
I think so.
And I think we're going to have a much better relationship, and this township is going to work so much better with an open line of communication between those two boards, because it's, we are the two government entities in this township. And it's really important. And again, you said about publicity. I don't need to publicize it.
Right.
I don't care.
Right.
But it's better, and that's what I care about, and that's been really cool.
Yeah.
So,
you have a lot to be proud of.
Thanks.
Well, you made it look easy. And I think we're all really, really lucky to have had you in the position of vice president, and I'm glad you're still on the board.
Thank
really
you.
glad you're still on the board.
Sometimes I am too. Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that closes the door on Andy's last episode of Beside the Gavel. Until you come back as a special guest.
Anytime.
What will next month bring? Who knows? Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next time on Beside the Gavel.